Hello everyone, my name is PB, your friendly polar bear. Rich asked me to talk about the disastrous effects of global warming on Mother Earth. You may not be able to feel the full effects of it yet, but my fellow bears and I do. We are facing extinction because the ocean freezes much later and thaws significantly earlier. We are losing the environment in which we have thrived for thousands of years. The season for hunting seals is shrinking quickly, and seals are our main food. We are losing the pack ice as the weather warms, and no pack ice, no polar bears. We will investigate our changing Earth and how it affects us now and how it will affect all of us in the near future. So spend the next few minutes with me as I explain what is happening to Mother Earth, why it's happening, and what we can do about it. Do you remember Hurricane Sandy a couple of years ago? Seawater rushed in and flooded lower Manhattan. Many subway stations and lower floors of buildings were inundated with seawater. But why did it happen? Melting glaciers caused by global warming are pouring trillions of gallons of water into the oceans, causing them to rise. Coastal cities all over the world are at risk of flooding. Because of warming oceans, hurricanes and cyclones are only going to get more frequent and more violent, and the extremes of weather are only going to get worse. The United States is the breadbasket of the world. We grow much more food than we consume and are able to export much of it to other countries. That's an economic boon to America and American farmers. But what would happen if we weren't able to grow anywhere as much food? It will happen when the warming climate detrimentally affects our farm production and causes food shortages everywhere. It's not only going to happen here, but it's going to happen all over the world. Climate change is causing many diseases to spread around the world. Some diseases are transmitted by certain types of mosquitoes, which have been spreading further and further north. That's happening because some of the climate changes that are occurring are increased heat, precipitation, and humidity, all of which create prime breeding grounds for mosquitoes. The hotter and wetter a climate is, the faster the mosquitoes can mature, and the faster diseases can develop. Fossil fuels are formed by decaying plants and animals over millions of years. They are called hydrocarbons. When we burn them, we release carbon dioxide into the air, which then traps the heat from the sun and doesn't allow it to dissipate out of the atmosphere. That's known as the greenhouse effect. The Industrial Revolution, which started in Europe in the middle of the 18th century and soon spread to North America, created the need for vast amounts of energy, which was satisfied by the burning of fossil fuels. That fuel burning increased the carbon dioxide in the atmosphere by more than 25%, which caused the increased greenhouse effect, which in turn increased the Earth's temperature by more than 1 degree. Big deal, you may say. 1 degree isn't that much, but tell that to the polar bears and the melting glaciers. And there's another problem with fossil fuels. Do you remember that I said that they are formed by decaying plants and animals over millions of years? Dinosaurs are long gone, and they probably aren't coming back anytime soon. Therefore, fossil fuels are not renewable, and when they're gone, they are gone. So in addition to the filth that they're spewing into the atmosphere, we're going to eventually run out of them. That's another devastating problem with fossil fuels. So what are we waiting for? Solve the problem now or solve it later. But inaction will cause us not to solve it at all. Let's face it, folks, we should view it as if our life depends upon it, because they do. No, that's not the man in the iron mask. That's us in the not-too-distant future, because we're polluting ourselves out of existence. Those hydrocarbons that I told you about earlier are not only causing global warming, but are also polluting our atmosphere. It will get to the point that we can no longer breathe the filth that our cars, homes, power plants, and factories are generating. Either warming temperatures and the problems they cause will get us, or the pollution that we're creating will. It doesn't matter which one does the job, because the final result will be the same: disaster and annihilation for the human race. And folks, that's no choice at all. There are global warming deniers who say that CO2 is not actually increasing and that there is no global warming. They put forth the following arguments. Number one, even if global warming is happening, the increase in temperature has no impact on the climate since there is no convincing evidence of warming. Number two, even if there is warming, it is due to natural causes. Number three, even if the warming cannot be explained by natural causes, the human impact is small, and the impact of continued greenhouse gas emissions will be minor. Number four, even if the current and future projected human effects on Earth's climate are not negligible, the changes are generally going to be good for us. Number five, whether or not the changes are going to be good for us, humans are very good at adapting to changes. Besides, it's too late to do anything about it. Or a technological fix is bound to come along when we really, really need it. These are just 5 stupid reasons that make no sense and are pretty lame excuses for doing nothing. Some of our leaders are deniers also, or do not understand the gravity of the global warming situation. President Trump said that global warming is a hoax perpetrated by the Chinese. Yeah, right. Former President George W. Bush pulled the United States out of the first Kyoto Protocol, claiming that cutting emissions would harm our economy, and China and India wouldn't cut their emissions anyway. Senator Jim Inhofe, who was chairman of the Environment and Public Works Committee, said that man-made global warming is a hoax, and likened the Environmental Protection Agency to the Gestapo. And these men are supposed to be our leaders. Multiple studies published in peer-reviewed scientific journals show that 97% or more of actively publishing climate scientists agree. Climate warming trends over the past century are extremely likely due to human activities. I'll say that again. 97% of scientists agree that global warming is mostly our fault. In addition, most of the leading scientific organizations worldwide have issued public statements endorsing this position. Isn't that enough of a reason to get off our butts and tackle the problem? There are ways to generate power without polluting Mother Earth, and we're using them today. Both solar and wind energy are being harnessed to give us renewable, non-polluting, and permanently available power. That certainly is a step in the right direction, but unfortunately they represent only a small percentage of the power generated. More than 40% of the power generated today worldwide still comes from coal, and it is the dirtiest burning of all fossil fuels. And what about nuclear energy? Other than solar and wind power, nuclear energy is, without a doubt, the cleanest of all power generating technologies we have available to us today. But it is not renewable, and it brings with it a host of problems we haven't yet solved. It has a definite PR problem since people are inherently afraid of a nuclear power plant in their own backyards. They will never forget 3 Mile Island, Chernobyl, and Fukushima. In addition, we haven't yet solved the problem of its waste products. those spent fuel rods that nuclear power plants generate. They are not recyclable and are stored in pools at the plants to avoid overheating. They are a constantly growing danger because we have no way of getting rid of them. And then there's the specter of a nuclear meltdown, which can render everything uninhabitable for many miles around. And finally, there is the cost and delays of building a nuclear power plant. No, nuclear energy is not a viable solution. Now for a lesson in physics. The ice sheet acts like a gigantic mirror, reflecting most of the sun's light and heat back into space. But with the advent of global warming, the mirror has cracked, literally. Much of the ice has thinned to the point where the sea is exposed, and the sea is much darker than the ice. If you remember from your physics class, dark objects absorb heat considerably more than light objects. So as more of the sea is exposed, the more heat is absorbed. The more heat that is absorbed, the faster the sea is exposed. The faster that the sea is exposed, yada yada yada. Well, you get my drift. Can you define the word exponential? One more thing. Global warming is definitely on Russia's side. Think about how an ice-free, readily navigable Arctic Ocean will change Russia's geopolitical surroundings. U.S. Navy oceanographers estimate the Arctic could be largely ice-free for part of each year by the 2030s. For that part of the year when the ice cap recedes, short, navigable, relatively safe northern sea routes will enable the Russian Navy to move their formations between oceans quickly for the first time. Our friend Vladimir Putin is certainly rooting for global warming. But it's not on Australia's side. Australia's Great Barrier Reef can be seen from outer space and is the world's biggest single structure made by living organisms, billions of coral polyps. It's been named a World Heritage Site and has been called one of the 7 natural wonders of the world. But the warming oceans are bleaching out part of it and killing it. What took nature millions of years to build, we're destroying in the blink of an eye. It's another disaster of global warming. The best course of action, the only course of action in my opinion, is to discover and develop an infinite, non-polluting, low-cost form of energy. It's out there, waiting to be discovered. All we need is the ambition, the staying power, and the clarity of purpose to do the job. We invented Social Security to create a safety net for all Americans. For good or for evil, we developed nuclear energy in the Manhattan Project during World War II. We put a man on the moon when President Kennedy told us that we needed to go there. We can do anything necessary if we just put our minds to it. The development of a new source of energy will have beneficial economic, financial, environmental, social, and political impacts on the world as we know it today. Selling and licensing the new energy process will help zero out our national debt, which is currently at $19+ trillion. It will help solve our trade balance of payments deficit, because currently we are sending almost $750 billion per year overseas to purchase oil. It will create hundreds of thousands of new jobs directly and millions more in spin-off industries. Jobs created will more than offset jobs lost due to the new technology. And we must retrain people who have lost their jobs. It will force OPEC to go out of business because the cost of oil will drop below $5 per barrel as demand falls significantly. Once the national debt and balance of trade deficit are paid off, all technology will be shared with the world free of charge to get everyone on board. Global warming and the greenhouse effect on the world will be nothing but bad memories. The polar ice caps will stop melting, and my brother polar bears will avoid extinction because energy-related global warming is no longer a factor. Terrorism, which is mostly financed by petrodollars, will see its source of income almost completely disappear. The number one advantage of the new source of energy is the fact that mankind will be around a little while longer. I'm sure there are even more advantages to be enjoyed with a new source of energy, but these are just a few. Thank you for accompanying me on our little stroll exploring the effects of global warming. No, global warming isn't a hoax perpetrated by China, and it isn't a plot by Wall Street to make billions of dollars. It's real, it's lethal, and it's terminal. But we can do something about it. The world has many problems: war, hunger, terrorism, ISIS, just to name a few. But as I said before, global warming is the most important problem facing us today. Because if we don't solve this one, we won't be around to worry about the others. Now I'm off to solve a much easier problem: world peace.